You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carlos Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 259 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings and I'm not full of man flu this week and I'm actually back in the studio. So, hello everyone. Sorry I missed you all last week.
Yes, hello Carlos.
Hi Carlos.
I can actually hold a conversation now without coughing my guts up every 5 seconds.
Although we have been having occasional flashbacks, it has to be said, because every now and again there has been
there's a little bit of
a horrendous lungful of unpleasantness.
Yeah, I'm 98% back to full capacity now.
Right, okay, well there we are. That is award-winning.
But I tell you what, guys, I listened to the show last week whilst I was not driving a forklift around at work, and and I thoroughly enjoyed the show. It was very entertaining, so you've done well, guys.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah,
yes,
I
should just explain to listeners that, ladies and gentlemen, in the background, the chewing noises that you can hear are because we have the legend that is Captain Al on the show. Unfortunately, his dinner's just arrived, and he is very hungry, as you can probably tell.
Good evening, everyone. It's pasta and French fries with some lemon meringue pie and ice cream. When I get round to it, I'll join the show.
Splendid. Okay. Yes. All right. Yes. Updates will be forthcoming throughout the show.
So obviously, joining me, as you heard, in the studio with this week, pushing all the buttons as usual, is Matt Smith. Matt, how are you? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah. Busy. Yeah, I'm glad you weren't here last week, because if I'd have got your cold, I think I'd have probably been very mean to you.
Yeah, it was not nice.
And if you'd have given it to Mother, I'd have been even more mean to you.
Do you know what? Gemma hasn't got it. I'm really disappointed. Yeah.
What do you mean disappointed? Do you know that's love right there, isn't it?
But she did look after me, to be fair.
Did good.
Really well.
Absolutely.
What is it, do you think, about the lifestyle that Gemma leads, as in like healthy, going out for a run, going to the gym, versus your lifestyle that has anything to do with the fact that you came down with man flu?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose add that to the fact that she works within the health industry, I suppose.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Although that would usually make her sicker, to be fair, if she's surrounded by body
I
people.
actually
Anyway.
think that she brought the disease home from her place of work. If I had to guess, personally.
Anyway,
joining us in...
Well, should that be the case, that is not a challenge to you to bring a disease home, okay, to share with her. Let's just draw that a line underneath that.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen.
Joining us as well on the show this week, as always, is someone who puts the A in AV. It is, of course, Neville Bounds.
Yes, hello everybody, and yes, a bit of man down situation here today because I've someone somehow damaged my knee. All that walking I've been doing over the last couple of days around airports and all sorts of business. So I've been confined to the edit suite, and the results of which you may see a bit later on.
Yes, absolutely. Part one of which we shall indeed be enjoying later. Yeah, absolutely.
And joining us. Oh, that's okay. Carry on, Nev.
No, I've finished. It's
okay. And joining us this week, also, he's joined us in the studio this week just for a change because he loves to come here.
It's the last time.
It's his last time in the PTUK studios.
Yes.
It is obviously our other awesome co-host of the show, Armando.
Hi, Carlos. I'm glad you're feeling better. Al, thank you for the introduction to airline pilot life with the eating in the hotel room in uniform, just trying to get spaghetti on your shirt.
You know, it is what it is. I mean, you fit these things in around. I mean, it's a clash between... I mean, I was all set for going to get a kebab. But
that's a terrible idea.
I looked at my watch and I thought, no, the kebab's going to have to go. I had one last night and the night before, so, it's not a great sacrifice.
No, okay.
£2.50 here, by the way, in Romania, a kebab.
Right.
And that's for everything.
Yeah.
Well, so I thought, right, well, what can I do? Well, I'm not going to have time to go out for dinner because that's a bit long and drawn out because it's kind of like an Italian influence here. So if you go out for dinner, 5 hours later, they bring you starters. So I thought, well, it has to be a room service, doesn't it? So, it's pasta and French fries. It's how it goes. And, airline life, well, you get it when you get it, don't you? You know, when you grab it when you can.
Fantastic. And obviously, we all know that joining us this week is the guest host, Captain Al. I mean, he doesn't need any introduction at all.
Is he with us? Is he? Oh, all right, okay.
Al is obviously pilot extraordinaire and food connoisseur.
So how tonight.
Carbs,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Definitely carb loading tonight. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
how are we rating this on TripAdvisor then, Al, this particular stay?
The spaghetti arrabbiata with the added French fries is actually very nice. I must say, though, I'm very much looking forward to the lemon meringue pie with ice cream.
That's the size of a house.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
What can I say? A bargain for £1.50, I feel, for
Good
the cake.
heavens.
So,
Right.
I do believe we found our next destination for a little weekend break, Matt.
Right. Yeah.
Don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. I
You
think
know.
you might be right there. Yeah.
Well within budget.
Absolutely.
Now, we're going to say a big welcome to everyone on this 9th of March evening. It's Friday. It's coming up to 7:10 in the evening. And we've got loads of family in the chat room, as always. Dr. Steph's joined us tonight as well. She's listening to us whilst driving her Jeep, I think. So drive safely, Steph. Auntie Liz is also in the chat room. She's picked up on the fact that I'm hatless.
Yes, I know.
Which is always a change.
Yeah, which is why the lighting is wrong over him, because obviously the lighting is always set up for the fact he's normally got a silly baseball cap on. So
I am sorry.
Anyway.
Richard King.
well, if Steph is listening in the Jeep, she'll be with us for the duration of the show because it will break down on the way. So,
Right, okay. So hello to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room. We've also got Cheryl Mandrake. Hello to you, Cheryl. Nice to see you back in the chat room.
Yeah.
Haven't seen you for a while in the chat room, so welcome to you. Chris Griggs is also in there, and Richard King and Neville Bounds and Armando are keeping eye on the proceedings with their various blue spanners in the chat room.
Yes.
So well done. So we've got loads of stuff to get through on this week's show. We've got all the usual news, but we've also got a fantastic recording interview that was done early this week with Pip at London Heathrow, which was videoed by the man himself, Neville Bounds. So we've got that coming up later in the show. We've also got some feedback, some video feedback from Neil Lamworn on his recent flight to somewhere where I've enjoyed a bit of plane spotting over in Lanzarote. So we've got that coming up later. But first, we're going to hand things over to Nev, because we've got some housework to do before we start the show this week. And it's obviously going to be a big thanks to our Patreon donators.
Yes, it's the dirty music, so it can only mean one thing, can't it? And that's the Patreon fund. And thank you very much to everybody that's contributed over the last 4 weeks. And they are Ruben Wells, Nick Anderson, Captain Jeff, Stephanie Plummer, Stuart Black, beg your pardon, Liz Piper, Owen, Neil Lamworm, Nico Rega, Jonathan Warner, Evan Shue, Adam Spink, Matt Stonemeyer, Jeff Ward, Philip Labe, Andrew Wilson, Masha Gert, Graham Haley, Matt Caton, Eric Graves, Jordan Rose, Steve Andress, Myla, Ryan Harper, Stuart Backer, Ray Williams, and Jenny Parkinson. Thank you to one and all. We could not do the show without you.
Very true. And how can they donate, Nev, if they want to donate via Patreon?
Well, the best thing to do is to go to our website, which is www.planetalkinguk.com, and there's a link to the Patreon system on there.
So big thanks to everyone who's helped us with the show this month. A big thank you. It's obviously it helps to keep Matt in check with some extra bits of kit every now and again. So I think you enjoy.
It's not my fault.
You enjoy it, though. You do love having the tech in front of you, though,
absolutely.
Matt.
Yeah. It
You
keeps
know,
me
yeah,
amused. The
keeps
more
me
buttons
amused.
I've got, the less talking
less
I have to
talking,
do. That's the way
exactly.
I see it. Yeah.
Well, we're going to kick off the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
Almost.
And if you're ready, Nev.
Surprisingly, yes.
And if you're ready, Armando.
Ready to go.
Captain Al.
oh yes, I'm ready.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story on the simpleflying.com website. And the headline is one that hit the news charts this week. American Airlines grounding 14 of their aircraft due to overhead bins not closing properly. So over the past week, American Airlines unfortunately has had to ground a total of 14 aircraft due to issues with overhead bins not closing. The airline was forced to cancel 40 flights because of safety concerns with the aircraft. Complaints came early this week from pilots of 2 Boeing 737-800 aircraft. Both planes had undergone routine maintenance check in Tulsa when the issue was discovered. The aircraft were recently...
That'll be Oklahoma, but just for the avoidance of doubt. What aircraft type was it again? I missed it.
Oh, are we gonna judge the photo? We'll get to the photo in a second.
No. Which aircraft manufacturer is having problems? Sorry, I've missed it.
Anyway, American contracted ATS to upgrade the interior design. ATS, aren't they a tyre company here in the UK?
They are, yes.
Yeah, upgrade the interior designs of 14 of the Boeing 737-800 aircraft. ATS is an external contractor who has worked with American...
Sorry, was that a Boeing? I missed that. Was that a Boeing that's got problems?
Fader down. The
No
renovation,
chance. Absolutely no chance.
The renovations included newly installed overhead bins, new seats with power outlets, and the overhead bins are larger than the original to support more luggage space. The aircraft will return to American
Airlines. Well, they're
Airlines
larger because the doors don't close.
with expectations to put them immediately back into service. The discovery of the first 2 aircraft having an overhead bin trouble signalled that American Airlines could ground the remaining 12 jets that also were serviced by the contractor. The 14 aircraft will now go through a complete inspection of the new renovations to ensure there are no other issues arising. A rep from American Airlines spoke with the Fortune, stating that out of an abundance of caution, we have proactively removed from service the additional 12 aircraft that were updated by this vendor and have notified the FAA. And ATS is a licensed company by the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, so is responsible for complying with all industry regulations. Safety is a major concern for American Airlines, they said, so the action to ground the aircraft is done in the best interest of the passengers. So, I mean, these guys have obviously had these new bins in, larger overhead bins. I mean, I'm guessing they just forgot to put a few extra screws in.
You think?
I mean, it's not very often you go on an aircraft and you have the overhead bins pop open in flight. I mean, I've seen it once, I think, in all my years of flying. But
I've seen it open in turbulence before.
But I mean, these overhead bins, these larger ones, they're fitting a lot of these, retrofitting a lot of these onto the Boeing, the 800s and 900s. And I always thought that the airlines are trying to sort of scale down the amount of luggage that passengers take on board, but they're providing a larger overhead bin. So
I think this is treating the symptoms rather than the cause, because, as I'm sure Armando will attest to, and I'm not being rude to Americans here, because regular listeners and viewers will know that I love America, but they don't travel light. They have no concept of travelling light. Your average British holidaymaker will go on a flight, you'll have an Aldi carrier bag, it fits in the overhead bin without any problems at all. Okay? You don't need 2 rollerboards if you're just going to Vegas for the weekend, because you're just going to sell what you've got in your rollerboards anyway to fund your debt. Right? So just travel smaller. Because we can't just keep fitting all this crap into the aeroplane. So this is, I mean, I genuinely think that this idea of trying to make the hat bins bigger and bigger, it's a fool's errand, because the bigger you make the bins, the more bags people will bring, the bigger the bags. People are going to try and get 25-kilo Delcies in these blooming things. So who wants to sit under half a ton of luggage? Because that's where we are. We're underneath it.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
I suppose I'm just happy that it was just the overhead.
Let's
just US tape.
Oh, that's so sad. You cut out right as
sorry.
I was hanging on your every word, Al.
Yeah.
I just didn't catch that last bit. So, yeah, as they say, everything's bigger in the United States. So, yeah, what can you do? I am just glad that it was the overhead bins that are having the issues and nothing more serious.
Well, yeah indeed, yeah.
Yeah, because the new seats with the new power and stuff as well. A lot of the smaller narrow aisle, single aisle aircraft are having all this seat back power installed, which I'd have thought would be more of a technical challenge, but they seem to have got
Well, you
that
may
right.
say that, Armando, but wait until Chuck or Hank's 25-kilo Delsey rollerboard smacks you on the bonce when you're a little bit of turbulence. Or, just for the matter, I mean, quite clearly American Airlines got a serious problem here, because if you've just managed to, taxi over a taxiway centerline light, and they've opened. So, you can only get so much in these things. I mean, we're not having to fit them with, 25 gauge Yale locks, with a fairly simple latching mechanism on these things. So I think we're just overloading them basically.
Yeah. So before we move on, just a quick notice of the photo, if anyone would like to pick up. We're talking about the 737-800, and that photo.
Hang on, let me open the picture up. Hang on.
Very much like an A321.
Here we go. Here's the picture.
Al could probably.
Here we go. So what's the aircraft we're talking about?
The 737-800.
Okay, and this is a photograph of?
I strongly believe that's a 321.
Is
it certainly is.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Good. Nice to know that. But then, to be fair, that this media fails thing is just relentless.
Another one for the bin, Nev.
Well, I just can't keep up with it, especially over the last couple of weeks. It's been absolutely mad in the media world with regard to fails and general misreporting, but that's actually quite standard now, isn't it?
It seems to be.
I think what we need to do on this show is we need to have some sort of jingle that we play for every sort of media fail, don't we?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll see what we can do. We need to find some kind of sort of like bell ringing or something, don't we? We need to do something
from a game show or something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So moving on to the next story, Matt, and this one for you is I'll just hope you've got your autocorrect turned off.
Of course. On my laptop, certainly. Not on my phone, I have to confess. This is on the Irish Post. And the headline is Ryanair passengers hilarious standoff with airline over autocorrect error goes viral. A Ryanair passenger's extraordinary standoff with a budget airline over a hilarious autocorrect error has gone viral. It all started when Wicklow resident Luke Bradley decided to book a flight to go and watch his beloved Manchester United in action against crosstown rivals Manchester City. Using the Ryanair app, Luke booked his flight over to Manchester for the big match. However, after reviewing his purchase, Luke noticed his name had been auto-corrected from Luke to lukewarm. Keen to correct the amusing autocorrect error, he decided to get in touch with Ryanair in the hope that the name attached to the booking could be changed with little fuss. Unfortunately, he discovered, to his understandable horror, that Ryanair were insisting he pay €115 to have his name changed to Luke. Now, I'm going to query this only because I don't know whether it's an oldish story, but didn't we run a story last week where they'd given you 24 hours now to make alterations before they actually sort of refused to do it? But,
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so it says, mate has been arguing with Ryanair all day.
The trouble is that the 24 hours on the 24 hours does now run out. It was a special offer.
Oh, I see. Right, I see. I see what you mean. Yeah, he's gone and dusted now. So anyway, mate has been arguing with Ryanair all day because autocorrect changed his name from Luke to lukewarm on their app, and they want €115 to do a name change on the flight. A standoff ensued, with Luke steadfastly refusing to pay up in the hope that common sense would prevail. No chance. It wasn't long before one of his friends, Connor, got wind of the story and decided to highlight his mate's plight on social media. Taking to Twitter, Connor wrote what I read out just a moment ago. The tweet soon went viral, with one follower highlighting the fact that it would actually be cheaper for Luke to change his name to lukewarm using Deed Poll, £33 to be precise. Luke has now returned to Twitter to highlight the issue further and ask for support to help from others on social media platforms. It is the first time he posted. It's the first time he posted on Twitter in nearly 2 months, and Luke is hoping that the tweet will convince Ryanair to change the name with little fuss. Manchester United aren't due to face Manchester City until the 24th of April, meaning there is plenty of time for Luke's unfortunate autocorrect issue to gain traction online. He's even come up with his own hashtag for the campaign: #JusticeForLukewarm. I quite like that. In the hope someone within the airline will see sense. Anyway, you get the gist of the story. It's I don't know.
Is it really that cheap to change a name by Depot? 33 quid.
Well, apparently so. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why I've tried to change yours. But I actually have some sympathy for I have some sympathy for Ryanair here.
Right.
Because if I've understood the story correct, Mr. Warm has used his app to make this booking.
Yeah.
So it's actually Luke's phone or device that has done the auto-correcting, if I understand correctly, rather than the Ryanair website stroke app, because the autocorrect is a function of the phone's operating system rather than the app. So whilst I can understand he's a little frustrated, you know, it's of his doing, it's his mistake. I do feel that Ryanair should be, you know, allow the 24 hours to make changes. That's what most airlines do.
Yeah.
But I think it's also fair to say that it's not their fault.
No, it's not completely. And of course, as I say, I'm sure it was last week we were reading a story where they said 24 hours. There is, of course, a strong possibility maybe it took him more than 24 hours to realise that he'd made an error on his booking. That, of course, is the other consideration in this. So, yeah, I don't know. It's, you know, rules are rules.
Auntie Liz says, Mr. Warm.
Mr. Warm, yeah, Mr.
Warm.
Lukewarm, in fact,
Warm.
yes, indeed. Anyway, Nev, I think you've got the next story.
Yes, I have, and it's on flightglobal.com. It's the best website because it's got a nice font. So
Right, nice and easy to read, yeah, absolutely.
To heck with the story, as long as the font's good, then that works for me.
Absolutely.
Well, it's all about the British Airways 747-400, which has just been painted in the Landor livery of the 1980s and 90s, which came out of the paint shop in Dublin this morning and flew to Heathrow. The aircraft registration Golf Bravo November Lima Yankee was ferried to Heathrow this morning ahead of its service entry later today to Miami, operating the BA 211. The scheme, which is named after the creative agency Landor Associates that designed it, features the British Airways coat of arms with the motto "To fly to serve" on the fin, with a stylised section of the Union flag. The livery also includes the airline's centenary logo, which is shown on all centenary heritage designs. The Landor 747 joins two other BA retrojets that the airline has introduced as part of its centenary celebrations, a BOAC 747-400 and a BEA Airbus A319. One additional retrojet is widely expected to be announced, which will feature the red, white and blue Negus colours from BA's launch back in 1973-74. The Landor livery is one of our most famous designs, and many will remember seeing it in the skies at some point in their lives, says BA's chairman and chief executive Alex Cruz. Introducing these liveried aircraft has been a huge honour, and we're excited to reveal details of the final design soon. Well, this aircraft has been flying for just over 26 years. It was first delivered to BA in February 1993. And but more importantly, the aircraft's name is the City of Swansea. And there's somebody on this programme who was born in Swansea. Who could that be?
Well, that would be me. I actually grew up in Swansea. So I'm very pleased to see that the City of Swansea is being honoured. Some people in the various chat rooms might know that I've got some dubious thoughts with regards to the whole BA 100.
Now, I have to confess, I actually saw this tweet earlier this morning when I got up. I wondered if it was going to get mentioned.
Well, it'll come as no great surprise. I mean, British Airways was formed in 1974, and under no circumstances does 2019 represent 100 years. So if they're you know, a bit premature by a matter of years, quite a number, I'm just wondering what they're going to do in the year 2074. Are they going to claim to be 100 years old again? You know, the second coming of BA, or the third even. Yeah.
I mean, I suspect none of us will be around to have to worry about covering it. Certainly,
No.
That'd be a young
You
team.
speak for yourself. I expect to be here forever.
right? Okay.
Annoying people on a regular basis.
God help us all.
I have to say, I've got to say, in all seriousness, this is my favourite one so far. And that's
Oh, is
my
it?
thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah,
on it.
I think it is the classic, and I think certainly for me, it represents. You know, when I was growing up, I went to see these aircraft standing on the top of the Queen's building when you could, over at Heathrow, and going to the aircraft shop, buying the models and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it was a great time, and the Landor delivery, the simplicity of it is fantastic, but it just looks so classy. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, Auntie Liz has said that her favourite was the BOAC one.
Yeah, I must admit, I really like that one. I think because it's one of the few liveries I actually remember as well. So it's sort of one of those, I suppose. It's and of course I think there is still one at Duxford, isn't there? That's got the BOCA. So where is this 100?
I can't wait to see the ethnic ones, the ethnic tail designs come back. That's what I'm really waiting for, because there were some absolutely hideous ones of those. So I mean, you know.
Yeah. So where is this? Seriously though, the point that you raised a moment ago, Al, where is this 100 actually coming from? So is it one of the airlines that they bought is actually 100?
It's purely a function of BA's marketing department, because even the most tenuous of links doesn't make them 100 years old. So I've asked British Airways numerous times to how they come by their 100th, and they're very slow in coming forward, let's put it that way. I've got nothing against BA. I travel with them quite a lot, and I rate them as an airline. It's probably fair to say they're not as good as they used to be, but I just am completely and utterly puzzled as how they've imagined up this 100.
Any thoughts on that, Nev? I mean, any idea how they've
if
come
anyone's
to this
going to know, it'll be Nev.
Yeah.
I think there's possibly been a bit of creativity in the marketing department, as Al kind of hints at. But of course, often, airlines today are a conglomeration of other airlines. So obviously there was BOAC and BEA, but I'm not sure that either of those were flying right at the
Neither
beginning
of those were flying 100 years ago.
No. So,
I mean, what they've done, they've obviously sat down and they've worked out, right, we want to have a 100th celebration. We haven't been going for 100 years. Never mind. We need to find a bloke in a pub who says he knows someone that said that BA started 100 years ago. Right. We found the bloke in the pub. He's the same guy who says there's a World War II bomber on the moon. Terrific. Let's roll with this. BA 100, hashtag. Let's go.
Okay.
You heard it here first. Greetings, by the way.
There goes my upgrade in July.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's right. Nobody watches this. You'll be fine.
Greetings, by the way, to Matt's aviation channel. He's in Switzerland, apparently. He says greetings from Switzerland in the chat room. So greetings to you.
Hello.
So
hello, Matt. In all seriousness, just before we move on, I mean, we have some real experts in the chat room. I've run out of devices and space on the desk, so I'm not in the chat room. But has anybody come up with a definitive chronological or categorical statement as to how BA have come up with this 100? Because I've had a quick Google search and I'm not seeing it at all.
Okay,
I mean,
all right.
BA,
Let's throw it to our chat room. So while we carry on with the show, not competition time. We'll come back to it shortly. So if we move on, and then hopefully, if the chat room is able to shed some light on it, then we'll be able to answer it later on. I think Armando, it is your go next, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is a little bit of a solemn but heartwarming story from the Pilot Wife Life, which is an online blog, as opposed to a news website. So as we've talked about already a couple times, on February 23rd, 2019, tragedy shocked the aviation world when Atlas Flight 3591 went down in Trinity Bay, just outside of Anahuac, Texas, about 12:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. The flight was a cargo transport from Miami to Houston for Prime Air using a twin-engine Boeing 767 and had 3 people on board. Captain Ricky Blakely, First Officer Conrad Aska, and jump seater Mesa Airlines Captain Sean Archuleta. When tragedy strikes the aviation world, it does affect all of us. We are a tight-knit family, and we are all only a few degrees from the incident. Even if we don't know those involved, we know those who did or know somebody involved. We all pray, hope, and believe that these types of events will never rock our world. But when they do, we stand together as one family, regardless of type rating, airline affiliation, or even country of origin. Even though the media did not feel like it was a big story, and it quickly fizzled out because the jet was cargo, and there was apparently not enough people aboard to warrant wide coverage, to us, it is our family. It affects us all to the core and leaves us with an empty hole in our hearts and in our extended family. Captain Sean Archuleta was, by all accounts, a stand-up guy who was easy to be around and who cared immensely for others. I was friends with and flew with Sean, cites Captain Cole Goldenberg. He would have been the first person there for everyone else when a tragedy like this strikes. He is a very special guy. Just before the tragic incident that took his life, Captain Archuleta had been hired by United Airlines and had already been assigned his class date. He was on his way to the major airlines. This was a celebratory event that we all look forward to as we move through our life in aviation, and it was not different for the Archuleta family. However, fate took away their moment and left a PW sister behind with her young children to figure out how to face another day without her captain. So in a gesture of kindness, respect, and the utmost class, United Airlines is doing something incredible. During Sean's in-dock class on March 12th, they will leave a seat vacant in memory of the great loss that rocked the aviation world and the hole that is left in all of our hearts. What an incredibly honorable and classy gesture. Furthermore, they presented his widow with United Airlines wings and epaulets. Yeah, this is a very classy move, as this young lady states, and it costs airlines tens of thousands of dollars to train a pilot. So I think it's a good act in his memory to leave that class slot open. So yeah, just
it's
well
a
done
nice
for United
gesture,
Airlines.
isn't it? It's a way of sort of acknowledging what's happened, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Very nice. Very nice. Well done, Armando. It's always good when you hear stories like this, obviously, when the respect is paid to the crew in this kind of situation, because like you said, this wasn't given the massive media attention that possibly another incident would have had with passengers, but it still needs that attention to put into perspective what has happened here with its families.
Yeah, and it is those random little acts of kindness. Somebody on our APG family, or that used to be on the APG family, is very close to this situation, and he posted a picture from one of the regular hotels that their crews stayed at, and the hotel staff had left letters for the Atlas Air crews coming in expressing their condolences. So just these random little acts of kindness that bring the aviation community together it's great.
Yeah, it is nice.
So moving on to the next story, and this one is on the bizjournals.com website, and it's bad news for Airbus. Well, slightly bad news for Airbus. Obviously they've had the A380 program wind down, and the headline for the story: Airbus off to a slow start in 2019 as cancellations mount. So Airbus has secured orders for only 4 aircraft through to the end of February, while conversely having had
move on. This story is not
more
relevant,
than
to be honest, is it?
100
it's
cancellations during the first 2 months of the year.
There's no correlation from any other websites. I think that no, we need to move on. Move on.
So as I said, Airbus this week reported 4 net orders in February, all for the A220, which I must say, Al, they are doing incredibly well with this A220. That until the middle of last year. When we saw
it last year, I think we all concluded that it's a cracking aeroplane. I mean, let's be honest, it's Bombardier under the hood, but Airbus, is the badge that's stuck onto it. But the combination of the two, the design and functionality of the aeroplane, and then the global support that Airbus will bring to it, it's of no surprise to me that this is going to be an absolute winner, certainly in the US, with those super big hat bins that you can get those ginormous wheeler boards on. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a cracking airplane. It's a game changer. To be honest, very similar to how the Embraer 145, the Barbie jet, was in its day, because we went from turboprops to regional jets very quickly. And I think that in America for sure, this aeroplane is going to be very popular.
Yeah, I'll agree with Al on this one. I was working for Atlantic Coast Airlines when we were flying Jetstream 31s and 42s, and the first CRJ, Bombardier CRJs were coming online, the 200s, and I believe at that time we were getting 8 a month at Dulles Airport, and it was as Al's saying, it was revolutionary at the time. I think this airplane is going to be a hit also.
I should also just point out that, Carlos, for some reason you're doing Al's story. I don't know if there's any particular reason why you're doing it. Yeah.
No, I didn't know.
But anyway.
It's a well-oiled machine.
Well, okay, I can pick up on the story because I've got the updated version. So Airbus off to an absolutely astounding start in 2019 as orders mount.
Right.
Airbus has secured hundreds of orders for brand new aircraft, and it is only February. Airbus this week reported 400 net orders in February, all for the A220, and that follows orders from European
Oh, steady. You're right.
The company has also revealed a total of 1,030 orders through the next 2 months, which will mean that they will be supplying up to 420,000 airframes in March alone.
Right, okay.
This is all from the Al report, not bizjournals.com.
Boeing ended 2018 by bowing down and saying, we have lost.
Okay.
We cannot produce sufficiently good aeroplanes to challenge Airbus's superior position in the global market. And we are now going to build a new aeroplane that will not be as good as the A330neo, said CEO. I can't quite read his name there. Anyway, that's the basic story of it. Moving on.
Oh dear, you heard it here first.
From the field reporter.
Our accuracy ratings just
just crashed. But anyway, there we are.
So there we go.
Right.
So basically, Airbus are doing well, and I'm sure Al should be the ambassador for Airbus.
Right, okay, good, lovely. Okay. Next story then, please, ladies and gents.
The next story is on the traveller.com.au website. It's one for Steve Vischer and Grant McCarran to listen to. So it's good news if you live in Australia, because Qantas carry-on bag limits are increasing from 7 kilos to 10 kilos. And this is not due to an increase in the size of the bins. So Qantas domestic passengers will soon be able to board flights with heavier carry-on bags. Oh, great. After travellers complained about the airline's 7 kilo limit. From March the 25th this year, travellers will be allowed to carry one item weighing as much as 10 kilos and a second piece up to 4 kilos. Currently, travellers are allowed to bring 2 carry-on bags weighing no more than 7 kilos per piece. The total cabin baggage weight limit will still be 14 kilos per person, with the rule change allowing one bag to be heavier than the other. The physical size limits on cabin bags will remain the same. Passengers are also still allowed to bring one small personal item bag, such as a handbag, slim laptop bag, as well as the 2 carry-on bags. Qantas said that the airline crews will be at the airport to ensure passengers are adhering to the new baggage policy. I think another airline in the UK does a similar thing, adding that any piece of cabin baggage weighing more than 10 kilos will have to be checked in. The decision followed a trial over summer, which included weighing passengers' carry-on bags at the boarding gate. It found that while 9 out of 10 travellers had less than 10 kilos of cabin baggage, a total of around 40% of passengers had bags that weighed between 7 and 10 kilos. You right there, Matt?
Am I the only person who can see the fatal flaw in this? I mean, talk about overcomplicating something fundamentally straightforward. So the total cabin weight limit per person is 14 kilos, but no single bag greater than 10. But you can, I mean, goodness sake. I mean,
I can see Grant now.
Actually having a bit of a field day with that. Actually, what I was laughing about, sorry,
is it any wonder that it takes 4 or 5 weeks to check in for a flight these days? Because
yeah, there is that. Yeah, I've just been reading some of the comments in the chat room. Actually, several of them seem to be around the fact that Carlos hasn't got his hat on. Captain Jeff has suggested that one of the reasons why he isn't wearing his hat is because it's been sucked into the jet engine that's behind him, and that's why the hat's disappeared. That's one option, certainly. But yeah,
that's a Boeing behind you, Carlos. It's not strong enough, that engine, to suck anything, to be honest.
Indeed.
Yeah. I was on fire tonight.
Absolutely.
What was in that pasta, Al?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, does anyone else share my frustration with all of this nonsense about weight limits, size limits, and all the rest of it for bags? Turn up with a carrier bag. You can get on. End of.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you think a lot of it is because the model of a lot of the low cost carriers are basically charging so much for people to put stuff in the hold, and that's why people are desperate to go to any lengths to avoid it? I mean, if they made it cheaper to put stuff in the hold, or they didn't charge you to put stuff in the hold, maybe people wouldn't try and put stuff in the hat bins.
I mean, I don't imagine too many people regard Qantas as a low-cost carrier.
No,
so,
fair point. Yeah, all right, shut up. Yeah, sorry. That would be me being
no, I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm just saying, look, you've got 14 kilos per person. You're allowed 2 bags, but no one of them to be greater than 10. It's like some sort of question out of, O-level maths paper, isn't it? Peter is 7 years older than Brian, who in turn is...
Train A leaves
For goodness
Chicago.
sake, and it's all pointless anyway, because if you say, okay, you're allowed 14 kilos, one single bag being 10, right? So they weigh it at check-in. Then you go and buy a shed load of stuff in the duty free, put it into your what was a 10 kilo bag that now weighs 20 kilo, shoehorn it into the hat bin that's bulging under the stress.
Yes.
And the next thing you know, it's bouncing down the cabin because you're travelling on a Boeing and it's crapped out again, isn't it?
Okay.
I do have a real question for you, Al. What do you do for weight and balance? Do you just have an average? Do you calculate everybody bringing on 14 kilos? What do you like? How do you approach it from the front end?
Okay, so it's a very, very sensible question for which, unfortunately, there isn't a really sensible answer, because all of the airlines across the world, other than the ones who are operating on very, very small aircraft who will actually weigh individual passengers and their bags, we all work on sort of averages. So, for example, a female passenger weighs 77 kilos, a male passenger weighs 88 kilos. And that, funnily enough, includes their hand baggage. Well, this is I mean, it's to simplify the process, but the whole thing is based on so many, simplicities. So the 88 kilos for a bloke includes their hand baggage allowance.
Oh, geez.
Now, if we end up having to take bags from the cabin because we've run out of space for them and putting them in the hold, funnily enough, these bags now develop a weight, because now they're going in the hold, we actually have to account for them. So they suddenly take on weight. They never had weight in the first place, but now they do. Right. So it's all a bit of a strange sort of setup, really. And ultimately, when you take the overall picture, whether someone is 88 kilos or 70 kilos, it's all averaged out, and it's all done with big safety margins. So there's no great risk of being spectacularly overweight. Although there have been occasions where aircraft have been substantially heavier than people thought they were. And I'm minded of a story some years ago of a load of guys traveling on a flight. When the aircraft, eventually laboured itself into the air, the pilots said that there's something not quite right here. The weight and balance really isn't right. And they asked the cabin crew, and they said, well, there's a lot of guys. Are they big guys? Have we got, like the Tongan rugby team and the supporting,
Yes.
No, not really. But they're all going on a convention. And the captain said, what convention? And it turned out to be a coin collectors convention.
Wow,
so they were all carrying significant amount of coins.
Wow.
So you can have extreme events that will tip the balance, so to speak. But in answer to your question, Mana, no, it's just a function of the number of people. That's where the hand baggage comes in. And I'm just fed up, really, of the fact that check-in now, because of all of these processes, I appreciate that we can't have just anything in the hat bin, but, everything has to be sized, weighed. So you're, 12 grams over your 10 kilo limit. So now you've got to, unpack your bag, find something like a toothbrush, remove that, shove it in your shirt pocket, put the bag back on the scale. Bingo, fantastic. Toothbrush stays in your shirt pocket. Everybody's happy. And if you excuse the expression, naff all has changed in reality.
Yeah, no, fair point. Yeah, I suppose they have to draw the line as far as passengers are concerned somewhere, though. We could talk about this for hours. We probably should move on.
The next story,
Matt.
Matt. This is a diamond one for you.
Is it? Okay, all right. So this is on the Traveller website, traveller.com.au. So that must mean that's Australia, isn't it? AU? Oh, okay. Anyway, US pilot orders 23 pizzas for passengers of an Air Canada plane stranded on the tarmac. I never get the luck. He's just like, if I'm going to be stranded, bring me a Domino's and I will forgive you. So a pilot on an Air Canada flight knew exactly what to do after his diverted plane full of passengers was stranded for 8 hours in the snow. Order pizza. Air Canada Flight 608 departed from Halifax, Nova Scotia from Toronto on Monday evening, but was forced to divert to Fredericton near Brunswick due to severe weather. The sudden reroute left passengers stranded on a snowy tarmac for hours with little to eat, until the pilot ordered 23 pies from Mingler's restaurant and pub in New Brunswick. Josie Lavery, the restaurant's owner and manager, said that the pilot
Is mingling the sort of Canadian word for swinging? I'm just curious.
I don't know. We'll ask Auntie Liz.
No, I suggest that we do not ask Auntie Liz about swinging, okay?
Okay.
Moving
on. Sorry. Anyway.
There's a limit, Mr. Smith.
Sorry.
Right? You're pushing it.
No, I meant more as our Canadian correspondent who might be able to answer your question. Stop trying to get me into trouble.
Now.
I know. Yeah, it's very warm in the studio. I don't know why. It's just like, yes, I don't need your help to get into trouble, Al. Thanks very much. Directly from the cockpit to request cheese and pepperoni pizzas for all of his passengers. We have delivered to an airport a few times to feed people, but not to a plane, Lavery said. I told him, no, that's
Planes
not a problem.
don't eat. They're inanimate objects. They don't require food.
No, okay, for the passengers on the plane. So no, that's not a problem because we complete large orders like that on a basic every day. Lavery added that the delivery from stove to plane was completed in an hour and 15 minutes despite weather conditions. Talk about 5 stars. Passenger Bill Carsden, who was on the receiving end of the order, shared a picture to fellow travellers chowing down as a flight attendant offered him slices of cheese pizza. He captioned the image, "Pizza has arrived."
A fantastic story. Well done to this pilot. But can you imagine this taking place in the UK? So you got this situation, okay, we've got no food, we're going to be here for 8 hours, I'm going to order pizzas for everybody. Fantastic, until up pipes the snowflake. Well, I'm vegan, so can I have vegan cheese and no pepperoni?
You're right, yeah. I see where you're going with this, Al. Yeah, it's a good point, yeah. Also, I mean...
You could guarantee in the UK that someone would be offended by this, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it's true, though, mate. You'd be more than happy if you're on this flight and they brought some nice hot pizzas on board.
Frankly, I'd accept a pucker pie, frankly, if I'm sat there and I'm hungry.
But I mean,
not a euphemism, folk.
The picture that Bill Carson has posted on Twitter here does show the passengers. They do look rather happy with their pizza. It's safe to say. I mean, they're all eating the pizza. So, but
I'm minded of the fact that Monarch Airlines did something very similar to this quite a number of years ago, where they delivered a load of Big Mac meals to the aircraft because the catering had got lost somewhere between Orlando Sanford and Orlando McCoy, and the captain just went into the terminal, and it was on if I remember rightly, it was on a DC-10, so he'd have ordered probably about 360 Big Mac meals. There was no snowflakes in those days, so people were quite happy with the meat.
Well, indeed, there we are. We should move on before we get letters about talking about food all evening.
So the next story, Nev, is a story right up your alley. This one.
Oh.
Yes, and continue the theme of food.
Oh no!
Really? No, I'm really getting hungry here.
Oh no!
It's a good thing we have a reservation at Chank's. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm starving now.
Right, yeah. It's
What
on
are you
the
doing,
Breaking
service?
Travel News.
Oh, carry
Sorry,
on, Nev.
what was that?
Al was inquiring
I said,
about room service or something.
Oh,
Well,
right.
you said you were starving, so I can order you something. You know,
Right, that's really
I can
helpful.
get on.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could shout down to Mother, I suppose. She might be able to bring us.
Do you have Deliveroo or Uber Eats in Bungay?
Good Lord, no.
Domino's?
Yes, actually. But anyway, Nev, please save the situation.
Well, actually, sort of upping the
ante.
quality of the whole thing a bit. BA is
Wouldn't
set to
take much.
deliver significant changes to the onboard products and service in its first-class cabin as part of its £6.5 billion investment for customers. The new look and feel, set to take to the skies from March the 31st, will include new bedding, amenities, and menus. The airline's customers will be offered super soft, sophisticated, new male and female loungewear.
Moving, Gloss. I don't think he's noticed. Keep moving.
Designed exclusively by luxury British fashion brand Temperley, London. The airline's chiefs have also designed a new delicious a la carte menu that focuses on fresh seasonal ingredients of British provenance. The new menus will be served on elegant bone china crockery, and delicate possibly as well. Designed exclusively for the airline by high-end British tableware designer William Edwards. The new tableware will be accompanied by contemporary cutlery from Studio William. Oh, it's not a Ryanair flight, can't you? The airline will also be introducing a new signature afternoon tea service, showcasing the great British tradition of high tea. The menu will include a selection of sandwiches, delicate pastries and scones, as well as a wide range of tea infusions. As part of the changes, BA is also investing in new Dartington glassware. Travellers will now be able to enjoy the airline's fine wines and champagnes from sophisticated stemware, whilst soft drinks and spirits will be served from elegant cut glass tumblers. Carolina Martinelli, BA's Director of Brand and Customer Experience, said, as part of our £6.5 billion investment for customers, we're changing parts of the travel experience in our first cabin. Our team of designers, chefs and customer service experts have carefully thought through the details we know matter most to our customers. In this, our centenary year, we've sought out some of the best designer and manufacturers to work with to ensure travelling in first with British Airways is an unforgettable experience.
Now, Nev, we're obviously travelling with BA at the end of this year to Dubai. What was the difference in price, do you know? I don't know, between the particular, travel arrangements we're having,
Muggle class and
first
business
class. I don't know
whether
whether you looked or not. I didn't look.
I just for a laugh, I think I looked at first class. I think there's no first class on the 777 coming back, but there was on the 74 going out. And I think it was the difference between 360 quid in the cheap seats and £8,000 in first class.
Okay. The price of a small car, essentially.
Okay.
And you still don't get a fresh flower in the lavatory because they have silk flowers in the lavatory, not fresh flowers.
Right.
That's right.
We are.
And these things matter. These things matter. If you're going to spend, £6.5 billion, well, put some decent flowers in the bog. The people who are travelling first appreciate these things.
It's a good point, well made.
I just like that they're doing an upgrade because they must be listening to the show.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
but also, I just had to read it twice because I thought it said 6.5 million, but it said 6.5 billion.
It's a big number.
So it certainly is, isn't it?
It is.
And if you're listening, BA, that's November. Me and Nev will be travelling.
Do you want to give a date just in case?
We'll let you know our flight numbers and dates.
Right, yeah. Okay.
See what we can do for us.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
So moving on
I presume you'd be happy to settle for business class.
Oh, business class is fine.
It doesn't have to be
business
first class.
Is fine.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy
Interestingly, I know we're not going to talk about food, but just very quickly, BA have got a long way to go to beat the Aer Lingus afternoon tea experience. They do 7 different flavours of scone in business class.
7 different flavours of scone?
Yes.
Right.
They do.
Okay. Well, there's jam.
Armando's looking, what the hell's a scone?
You know what a scone is. You must have had an afternoon tea.
You've had a scone?
Scone?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they do a toffee scone, which is very nice, actually. So, let's see how many different scones BA can come up.
I'm slightly scared that my diction is being picked up by an American. No offence.
I don't know what. Moving on.
Moving on.
Anyway, right, whose go is it next?
Armando.
I think that's me. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So this is from AOPA. I think this applies mostly to our U.S. listeners and increasingly the European market too, because they just broke into that over here last year, I believe. So Boeing acquires ForeFlight. The co-founder of ForeFlight says the breakneck pace of enhancements to the flight planning application will not change now that his company is owned by airliner behemoth Boeing. The airline manufacturer announced March 6th that it had acquired Houston-based ForeFlight. Previously privately held, ForeFlight is believed to be the largest player in electronic flight bag app business. The company teamed with Boeing-owned Jeppesen in 2016 to incorporate Jeppesen terminal and en route charts as an option in ForeFlight. It was also working with Jeppesen's Flight Deck Pro app team to bring new features to that product. The acquisition also expands Boeing's rapidly growing unparalleled digital services portfolio, which will enable us to compete, win the $2.8 trillion 10-year services market, says Boeing Vice President Ken Sane. ForeFlight was founded in 2007 when General Aviation pilots Tyson Ways and Jason Miller developed a weather planning service for the first generation of Apple iPhone. When the next iPhone model could handle apps, the team quickly expanded the capabilities into flight planning, and then came the iPad in 2010. The product sprouted IFR and VFR chart overlays and many other features. Today, the app integrates weather, pre-flight planning, moving map overlays, variety of additional resources for general aviation, business aviation, military, and the airlines. Goes on to say subscription prices are between $100 and $300 annually, depending on the features selected. They have developed a reputation for an amazing pace of innovation and new features, with app updates occurring every few weeks. The company also has an admirable reputation for customer service. So I am a huge fan of ForeFlight. I think we've talked about that here before.
Yeah.
I've showed you guys. So the general sort of consensus is, let's see what happens with this, you know. We love ForeFlight. We'd hate for, if anybody's listening, we'd hate for ForeFlight to change, you know, especially if the price point, I think, works. They've got 4 or 5 different levels, but I don't know if it really gets more expensive than that and you start losing any kind of interoperability. You know, that, I don't know. I think that'll be a downward.
Al, didn't you do an interview with the folks at ForeFlight when you went to
I did, because I spoke to them with regards to their launch into Europe, and I kind of had an anticipation that it's been largely proven right, and I'm not going to do them a disservice here, but I think they underestimated the task that was involved to bring ForeFlight to Europe. ForeFlight works brilliantly in the US and in Canada because fundamentally all of the infrastructure is there, pulling into all of the information largely just comes from 1 or 2 sources. In Europe, of course, it comes from numerable sources. I think there are 23 countries under the European banner. So each one of those has its own aviation regulator, provider of data, etc. So I think that their progress in Europe is slow. I'm hopeful that they will be able to deliver the same level of product that they have done in the United States. Probably more so for the IFR market, the instrument flight rules, rather than the VFR. But I also have some concerns about this acquisition from Boeing, because quite often when, let's just say, grassroots software applications are bought up by large companies, the first thing that goes down the tubes is the customer service. And that's vital for these sort of applications, because ForeFlight has grown a huge amount, and it is quite intuitive, but there are occasions, just like in anything else in the world, where you have to turn to tech support. And historically, the ForeFlight tech support's been pretty good, and the customer service has been good. And I just worry that that's not going to be the same going forward. And I'm hopeful that this investment might make ForeFlight in Europe better, but I also have some reservations about that. I'm very pleased to be talking about this in a year's time and to say that I was completely proven wrong, and how fantastic ForeFlight's doing in Europe. We shall see. I think Armando's already sort of kind of evaluated the situation. I've asked a few of my American GA pilots what they think about it, and I think it's probably fair to say that they have concerns. Good on the two guys who developed it. They'll be going down to the bank with a very hearty check. But I wonder whether they're going to be kept on in some sort of managerial role, or if they're just going to retire to Barbados, never to be seen again.
Probably the latter, yeah. It's. I mean, could you argue maybe that someone like Boeing, with their financial might, they've now got the finances in place, if you like, to sort of, really hit Europe, perhaps, and sort of spend the money that's needed to bring it to everyone's.
It's a logical point. To be honest, I don't think ForeFlight were ever strapped for cash to be able to do the development work in Europe. I think it was a logical progression, but it's slow progress. I mean, they launched in Europe over a year ago, and it's only within the last few weeks that they've managed to have any charting outside of Jeppesen for the UK. So it's a very, very slow progress for them, and I don't think it's lack of money. I think it was underestimating the task that was involved, and then how to implement it. Because if you're dealing with 23 different organizations, it's a heck of a lot more complex than just dealing with one or two. And if you're used to dealing with just one organization, and of course language difficulties, etc., will come into play here. So just as we will encounter problems dealing with Bulgarians or Hungarians or even the French. Did I really mention the French? Yeah, I did. Dealing with the French, it's wholly different to just dealing, say, with the FAA or NOAA in the United States. So I generally don't think it's a lack of funding that's that slow progress. And I actually don't think that the Boeing purchase will make any difference to the progress. My concerns are just how this product might just become. I mean, the reason that they bought ForeFlight is very obvious, because they want the user interface skills that ForeFlight have been able to develop. The Jeppesen GA products are ropey. The Jeppesen professional products, from a user interface point of view, aren't great, and that's why they've bought ForeFlight. They want the expertise in the user interface.
So, with that in mind, there is a possibility, of course, then perhaps that the model that may actually be relatively unscathed, because it's those skills that they want for other applications, perhaps, rather than fiddling with ForeFlight itself.
Well, yeah, the risk is that ForeFlight is the forgotten cousin.
Yeah,
they poach the expertise in the development team for other projects, and ForeFlight stifles.
Sort of suffers, yeah.
And Al touched on a point. ForeFlight was created by General Aviation for General Aviation, then it was picked up by other industries. And that's one of the things that I'm afraid of, is now that it's got the Boeing title on it, that General Aviation will maybe, not be at the top of their development
priority list. Yeah. Good point.
I mean, a good analogy for this might be your village pub that has been run successfully as an independent pub gets taken over by a big pub chain. I won't mention
or something. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to mention anything in particular, but yeah, I mean, there's various ones. It's not going to be the same pub, is it?
No,
they're still going to serve beer, they're still going to serve food, but the bloke behind the counter isn't in a position to say, right, lads, we're going to have a lock-in tonight.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I see what you mean. Anyway, we better move on, because we are rapidly running out of time already.
Yeah. So the next story.
That'll probably mean there's no time for the military section, won't it?
It's the last time that Armando's in the studio. We have to do.
I'm just happy to be here.
So the next.
No. We will let him do a story.
One story.
All right, that's good. Anyway, come on.
The next story, Captain Al, is for you, and obviously this one is regarding something that interests me. Actually, is to what the perks you get as flight crew. So carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. This comes from USA Today. Armando, is that generally regarded as a quality newspaper or a tat newspaper?
Sure, it's nationwide. I'll just say that.
Oh, he's so diplomatic.
Yeah,
I was going to say, spot the politician.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. You told us nothing in that statement, Armando. Thanks.
Yeah. So
moving on.
This is from the USA Today yesterday, if that makes any sense.
There you go. So you just say yesterday.
Yeah. So from the USA yesterday, more than 35 United Airlines employees were fired after the company discovered they were abusing their employee travel perks by selling travel passes, which are intended for employees and their friends and family. United employees at the gate noticed something fishy about a particular group of 9 non-revenue pass riders.
Oh, dear.
Personal hygiene standards not great in some parts of the US, it's probably fair to say. The company said in an article published on United's internal site and obtained by USA Today, the 3 families who were travelling internationally stated they had paid for their first-class tickets and they were on non-revenue reservations and were unable to provide the names of employees who had provided the tickets. Following an investigation, the airline uncovered a brokering scheme where employees were soliciting past travel privileges from their colleagues to be put up for sale. Maim Biak rants against United Airlines crew for shutting boarding door in my face. Hang on, I'm not even certain that's part of the same story. No.
Way to read the links. Who put this question mark in there?
Yeah, okay. So United discovered some employees gave fake documentation in order to name travellers as their step-parents or domestic partners. Some of the employees who gave up their passes received payment, while others were deceived into giving away their past travel privileges based on the pretext that the passes were for a good friend or relative, although that it would have been against the rules, the airline stated in the article. The employees involved were fired. United explained, noting some claimed that they believed that what they were doing was okay since they had past travel privileges that weren't being used. United spokesman Frank Benaretti told USA Today yesterday, enjoying flying privileges is a unique and special advantage of working at an airline, and it is intended only for our employees and their friends and family. We have clear rules on flying privileges so we can fairly enjoy this benefit. The article also provided a reminder to employees about the rules of travel passes. Don't let something like this happen to you, the airline continued. Your past travel privileges are intended for use only by you and your friends and family members. While you can be reimbursed by your past riders for any taxes, fees, and inputted income for their travel, charging above that amount is not allowed, and selling the past travel or trading for goods or services isn't either. I have to say well done to United on this, because it has been an ongoing problem for quite a while, and enough is enough, because otherwise the few will spoil it for the many.
Actually, you said, I can only use sort of coach driving as an example, but there was a time when you used to slightly different, but as the coach driver, you used to have a perch. So when you turn up to, say, Birchhanger services or Cambridge services with a coach load of people, the coach driver, for essentially choosing that service station to go to, was given a perk or an incentive, if you like, to encourage you to bring your coach load of people to there. But because there's been, again, it's the majority or the minority spoiling it for the majority, those benefits have been dropped because some people were like bringing empty coaches where they had no passengers on board, for example, and therefore we're still claiming their benefit, if you like, and so now a lot of them, Birchhanger especially, where they used to give you sort of a £10 voucher, now only give you a £2 voucher and things like that. You used to be able to, as a coach driver, go to Thursford Christmas Spectacular, and as the driver you used to be allowed to go in free. You now can't do that because drivers used to try and take all of their family with them as well. And it's the same in this scenario, isn't it? It's people sort of, because in your industry, quite rightly, there are usually some pretty impressive perks available as a pilot.
Yeah, and when you're doing your employee onboarding, it's I think they make this absolutely clear that, I know when I grew up in an airline family, my dad was an airline pilot and my brother, and they even would stipulate the dress code for a non-rev travel. And it was always, I know my dad would be very strict with me as to even how I acted when I was a non-rev employee, because it was representing the airline.
You were still representing the airline, even though
absolutely.
you weren't on duty. Yeah,
absolutely.
Now, now, Al, this is a subject obviously that you're very passionate about, isn't it, in regard to dress code and things like that?
Yeah, very much so. I genuinely believe that as an industry, we're kind of spiraling downwards in people's estimations. And I'm not trying to make this into, hey, I'm a pilot, look at me, worship the ground I walk on. It's nothing to do with that. It's about professional etiquette. And if we want the public to respect us as an industry, then we need to behave accordingly. And a lot of that stems from, how we dress, how we present ourselves. I've said on social media, if the airline provides you with a shirt that has buttons, use them. If you are provided with a tie, wear it with pride. And absolutely, moving back to the story, if you are lucky and privileged enough to work for an airline that provides you these perks, respect it, because otherwise the airline will simply remove them. And that will hurt everybody big time. So, let's not screw everybody else just for a few bucks in our bank account. We all appreciate that everybody's got bills to pay, but this isn't the way to go, folks.
No, indeed. In fact, actually, we're just having a look here in the studio. I'm just trying to get one to pop up here. But I mean, even if you go back to like the 1970s as an example, I mean, there was a time when that's brilliant. I've chosen the only one that's really tiny. So there was a time when you would. Even when the passengers, when they were travelling, I mean, it used to be a thing where you travelled in shirt and tie. You certainly wouldn't have any of this where you've got people who are travelling in jogging bottoms and a t-shirt. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this used to be the sort of standard when you were flying around, and it's just like, is that the fault of like low cost airlines, perhaps, because it is now affordable by people who perhaps couldn't afford it
we have to be very careful, because the industry, since the period of time that photograph has taken, has changed a lot. And it has made airline travel accessible to everybody.
Yeah, including me, to be fair.
Well, yes. I say everybody. I mean, a lot more people than it would have been previously. It now, relatively speaking, isn't expensive to fly to the United States. When that photo was taken, it would have been very expensive and outside of the reach of many normal, hard-working, in inverted commas, working-class people. So we have to be minded of the fact that we've made travel accessible to a lot of people, and that's a good thing. I don't particularly mind, within reason, how passengers dress on board. At the end of the day, they've bought the ticket, and so long as they are dressed respectfully, then that's absolutely fine. Yeah. All I'm trying to say is that most airlines require their cabin crew to be dressed very smartly and professionally. I know a couple of airlines are taking what I consider to be a retrograde step at the moment with regards to uniform standards, but maybe that's a subject for another show. But from the piloting community, if we wish to be professionally respected, then let's behave professionally.
Yeah, I mean, Nev, how do you, obviously you do perhaps more flying than most of us here. Well, I mean, Armando, I mean, you do quite a lot as well. I mean, how do you feel about the whole sort of like image thing as far as airlines and their pilots and cabin crew are concerned?
Yeah, I think that Al's right. I think the crew have to be as professional as they can, and not just in the way that they operate in the aircraft, obviously, in the customer service, but also how they look. And also, I think they could, if they are not professional in the way they look, I think that could do the airline a disservice. But more importantly, when it comes to pay increases and terms and conditions and all the rest of it, then they might not find themselves in such an advantageous position. And I just think it's fair and reasonable to ask people to dress professionally when they're doing that job, especially when the airline. I mean, I know that they've probably possibly bought the uniform themselves in some cases, but you've got to look reasonable for the operation, haven't you?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the reason that I've raised my head above the parapet about this is that if in years to come as a pilot community, when there isn't a pilot shortage and we're scrabbling around in the dirt trying to get the best terms and conditions, the best pay, bearing in mind that it's very easy for guys such as me who've paid off their debts, not that long to go to retirement, but it's the guys new into the industry with $100,000 or more debt. Yeah. And what we want is to be paid an appropriate amount of money for the job that we do, because it is a responsible job. And if we want people to respect us, then let's look the part, because the professional standards, generally speaking, on the flight deck are high. But if the public see us looking like, ragtag and army turning up to the aeroplane, what's their first impression? Well, he looks scruffy, I'm sure he's not very good at his job. So first impressions do count, and I've directed this also to people in the industry who are, in inverted commas, very social media savvy. So let's convey what we do in social media. I appreciate I'm sat here with an open shirt, but that's because I just wanted to take my tie off. So I will apologize to anybody who thinks I'm hypocritical. But if we want to convey ourselves to the masses, then let's look the part, let's do the right thing, and let's not belittle our profession. Let's, make the public aware that what we do is a difficult job. It's not something that everybody can do. And also, let's try to maintain our standards in all aspects for future generations of pilots, so that we don't end up in the position where we have pilots who can't afford to live because the pay is so poor. In certain quarters, it's already bad enough.
That's true. And I think also...
Rant over, sorry.
That's fine, you carry on. Also, in your defence, to be fair, Al, you are off duty, you are in your hotel room, you're not out in public, although obviously you're on the show. We don't expect you to be wearing shirt and tie. So I think to be fair, the fact that you're in your own private room is sufficient reason enough not to be wearing a tie. Anyway, we better move on.
And to be perfectly honest, I also needed to take the tie off to disassociate myself from my employer.
Oh, no, of course, yes, that's appropriate. Yeah.
So the next story.
Anybody who knows me and knows me well enough knows exactly where I work, but that's not really the point.
No.
But I just didn't want to appear to be hypocritical.
And the pasta too.
Yeah. Obviously,
absolutely.
eating pasta, that's a disaster as well, isn't it? Anyway.
So the next story is on the gulfnews.com website. And as we all know, it's International Women's Day thingy what's name that's happening, isn't it? Is it this weekend?
What's the name? Right. Okay.
It was a few days ago.
Yeah.
So
UAE, the United Arab Emirates Airlines.
God, this is actually Al's story, isn't it?
No, Al's just done the one.
Oh, did he? Oh, yeah. So I'm not paying attention now. Sorry.
Well done, Matt. So Emirates.
I did the one about the United staff flogging their travel benefits on eBay.
I'm terribly sorry. I had a nap.
So Emirates are paying tribute to all women in their workforce on the occasion of International Women's Day. Dubai Emirates Airlines is paying tribute to all women in its workforce as advocates for gender equality across the globe, and are set to celebrate International Women's Day this weekend. In a video released on Thursday this week, the UAE-based carrier highlighted the diversity of its female staff, showing women handling various roles across the company, from the cockpit to the ramp and to the service desks. The short film showcases females working as pilots, cabin crew members and engineering staff, amongst others. Behind the scenes, smooth takeoffs, the perfect landings The iconic hat and the welcoming smiles, the ambition to soar and the passion for more are the women of Emirates, the voiceover states. International Women's Day is celebrated every March the 8th. Although women have been fighting for equality for many years, the female gender continues to face challenges. In a recent study released by Global Institute for Women's Leadership, Ipsos and King's College London, on the special occasion, women highlighted equal pay as one of the issues still facing them. Particularly in Serbia, cited by 41% of the women, Australia 40%, Poland 24%, and Russia 21%. Across the globe, 36% of the respondents said that paying women the same as men would really help achieve equality between the sexes. Tougher laws to prevent violence and harassment against women would also help promote women's rights. Abdulaziz Ali, Executive Vice President of Human Resources at Emirates Group, said that they're very proud of their talented and passionate female colleagues in the company. He assured that they will continue to provide an environment that facilitates the enhancement of professional skill sets and career growth for the female staff in the aviation sector. On the occasion of International Women's Day, we'd like to thank all our female staff for their dedication, professionalism, and for their significant contribution to the success of Emirates, he said. Women account for over 40% of the Emirates Group workforce and come from around 160 nationalities worldwide, including over 1,100 UAE nationals. A small number, more than 1/5 of the females in the company, also have been with Emirates for at least a decade. Now, Captain Al, how many, roughly off the top of your head, how many female pilots do you have with your airline?
Off the top of my head, I've got no idea, to be perfectly honest. I'm not privy to such information. I was flying with a very nice lady pilot today, so I can't answer your question in truth. The airline that I generally work for has a very good scheme in place that allows existing cabin crew to train as pilots. Now, it's probably fair to say that the majority of cabin crew at most airlines are female, so they are doing an awful lot to increase the numbers of female pilots. I've long said that it's great that there's all these initiatives. We just need to make sure that people end up in the jobs on ability, not just because of gender. That's not me being anti-female or anti-feminist. It's just a simple statement of fact. We need to be careful of overdoing the positive discrimination. We need to remove the barriers, but we need to be honest about ability. So, yeah, I can't answer your question, but probably a higher than average for most airlines of our size.
And a lot of those captains as well as first officers.
There would probably be less out of the female pilots. There would be a smaller proportion as captains, but a lot of that, of course, is the fact that if you go back 10 years ago, proportionally there were less female pilots. So it's going to take a period of time for those effects to kick in, if you like. But I currently operating from, there's at least one female captain just in the base. It's a very small base, so we're not talking, one female captain throughout the airline. Going back to Monarch Airlines, we had 2 or 3 female captains, all fantastic people and great aviators. So I think it's great that more and more ladies are coming into aviation on my side of the flight deck door, and I think it's great that it's being promoted as a good job to do, so long as we're not overdoing the positive discrimination. I think that's the key point.
Yeah, excellent. Right, so the last story, Nev, what's this one all about on the businessinsider.com?
Yes, it's all about the 20 biggest airlines in the world, and there's some quite eye-opening statistics here. So I'm just going to run down them actually. And at number 20, it's Alaska Airlines.
Do we need the music? Do we need the music?
Hang on, just Sorry, I thought we were. Is there not a bit of blurb at the beginning? No, there isn't. Is there?
but I
No.
was just worried about the time.
Good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, okay, yeah,
We haven't
fair
got
point.
much of it, really.
Yeah, no, okay, all right. Hang on, just give me just chat amongst yourselves for 2 seconds. I will work out a way of doing. Here we go. Then it's not working. Brilliant. Okay, chat amongst yourselves.
So this was Nev. This was about the 20 biggest airlines in the world, and as Nev just quite rightly pointed out, there are some eye-watering
Here we
figures.
go.
So Nev,
And at number 20, it's Alaska Airlines with 233 aircraft.
at number 19.
Aeroflot Russian,
Oh, go on. Well, we're going to take one. Go. No, number 19, Aeroflot, Russian Airlines, 56 million. Is that 260,000? Blimey.
Should we just do aircraft? It's quicker.
Yeah,
Go on then.
Yeah, go.
Fleet size.
number 18, it's Air France with 206 aircraft.
And number 17, British Airways with 267 aircraft.
Number 16, it's Air Canada.
Number 15, Captain Al.
Number 15, it's LATAM with 308 aircraft.
Number 14, please, Nev.
All Nippon Airways with 294 aircraft.
Armando, number 13.
Number 13 is Indigo with 206 aircraft.
Captain Al, number 12, please.
Emirates, 271.
Carlos, number 11.
Lufthansa with 338 aircraft.
It is number 10, please, Nev.
Air China, 418 aircraft.
Number 9, please, Armando.
It is Turkish Airlines with 350 aircraft, but 93 million seats.
Carlos, number 8, please.
EasyJet, 317 aircraft.
Captain Al, number 7.
China Eastern Airlines, 525 aircraft.
Number 6, please, Nev.
China Southern Airlines with 597 aircraft.
I'm going to do number 5 because it's always me that does their story. It's Ryanair with a fleet size of 439 aircraft. Number 4, please, Carlos.
It's Brian Coleman's favourite, United Airlines, 765 aircraft.
Number 3, please, Armando.
Getting with the big boys now, Southwest Airlines, 749 aircraft, 209 million seats.
Number 2, please, Captain Al.
Delta Airlines, 879 aircraft.
And finally, at number 1, please, Sir Nev.
It's American Airlines, as we thought it might be, with 956
There we are.
And what's their capacity, Nev?
256,920. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, 256 million. 928,663 seats.
A tiny
Wow.
number, absolutely. No, that's quite a.
Does that
change.
take into account the grounded 737s, though?
Right, now, moving on. Next. Okay. All right. Okay, what's next? Quick, moving on.
Right, so moving on
Well
with the
of
show
machine.
then. Moving on with the show this week. We're going to hand things over to Nev to introduce the next very, very interesting part of the show.
Yeah, well, yesterday, Pilot Pip and myself went down to London Heathrow Control Tower. And although we did go up to the top of the tower, which we do sometimes when we're there, but we were actually at the base of the tower where they are developing the new digital tower lab. So it's a research and development project. And firstly, we've got to thank Paul Beesham for setting it up for us in the first place from NATS, and also Hannah Haggerty, who met us there as well. Adam Spink was there too, which was great. And Pip is talking to Andy Taylor of NATS about the project.
So this is the Heathrow Digital Tower Lab, brand new facility, which NATS and Searage have deployed in the base of the control tower at Heathrow. Mm-hmm. We've done it for 2 main reasons. One is the richness of the data that's available here, so all the live operational systems we can tap into and get the data from those. And what you're seeing at the moment is an amalgamation of that, and also the video surveillance that we've added. Mm-hmm. So that provides us with the world's first 4K Ultra HD digital tower facility. We're using it as a laboratory here because it has 2 main benefits about it. One is that I've got access to the data through the technology, but I also have access to the team of air traffic controllers that work here at Heathrow. So when I want to develop, test, and then deploy new digital capabilities for the controllers into our tower, then I can do that here by having the data, having the technology, but also having access to those controllers. So we work together, and NATS and Seerage have technical teams here that support the controllers in testing and deploying those systems. So this is brand new. We're testing our first capability, but we'll be layering those on as applications and increasing the amount of camera surveillance that we have and integration of other systems, so that the laboratory grows in its capabilities, and those capabilities can be deployed quickly.
Sure. So it's absolutely crystal clear. It's lovely to look at. So I think you said earlier, this is fed by 10 cameras, did you say?
There are 9 cameras that are giving this panorama at the moment of the north runway at Heathrow, 27 right, which this morning we're using as the arrival runway. So you can see a British Airways flight just vacating the runway at the moment there, and an American Airlines outbound aircraft taxiing around the north side from Terminal 3 and then heading over to the southern runway 27 right for departure. And I can tell that even though we're down here, just by looking at that, and I can see that the labelling, the blue label of the outbound and the brown label of the inbound just gives me that information. I can also tell that the British Airways inbound is going on to Terminal 5, stand 546. So that information is readily available. Those labels and the data that we show is fully configurable, so we can change all of that.
So I'm not quite sure if the camera can pick up what's on those tags, but you just perhaps explain what all that stuff is on those tags and what else perhaps you could display there.
Well, what you can display there is almost endless. It's what you would want to have displayed as an operational person, and that could be an air traffic controller, or it could be an airport operations or an airport operations centre person. So what it's displaying for us at the moment is the aircraft call sign, so the company's designator and the trip number that we would broadcast over the radio. It gives us the aircraft type, and it gives us on the inbounds the parking stand that it's going to. But we could put anything on there. We could have the standard instrument departure, route, wake turbulence category, whatever information is relevant to the controller. But what we try and do is ensure that we can kind of rationalise the information to give just the amount that the controller needs, no more, so that they don't have to search for the information that they want, but it gives them everything they need in a one-stop shop. And we also then have the layer of video at each of the workstations, which means that a controller can have specific video and integrated data fed to them directly. So if they're a ground movement controller, say the ground movement 3 position for Terminal 5, then we can give them Terminal 5 pictures. Likewise, if they're controlling Terminal 2, I can give them Terminal 2 pictures. And even though those two terminals are kilometres apart, the two controllers can sit next to each other, and the video that they can see can be as if they're sitting directly on top of that terminal building. So it brings the information and their area of responsibility directly in front of them, but allows them to sit next to each other so they can work more efficiently.
Sure. So is the idea going to be then that you're going to just duplicate those controller positions from upstairs? You'll have a departures controller and arrivals and a ground, or are you somehow going to look to kind of job share with all this technology so you can reduce the roles down into one or two people perhaps?
Well, what we're doing is predominantly around supporting the controllers that we have in the tower. So I've got 2 workstations down here. There are more workstations in the control tower because we have 3 ground movement controllers, 2 runway controllers, a supervisor, ground movement planner. However, the positions we have in the laboratory are configurable. So I can make one of the positions ground movement control 1, I can make the other one runway 1, runway 2, I can have 2 ground movement controllers, 2 runway controllers. We can change that. So from the point of view of being able to work on a particular solution that we can deploy upstairs, what I have here is everything we need.
Right.
It means that we can potentially make the workstations upstairs different, provide a more efficient display of information to controllers. We can also supplement what we're displaying with prompts and support from artificial intelligence. and I can show you a demonstration of what we're doing with artificial intelligence using video surveillance and how we indicate to controllers particular things around the operation that is important for them.
Sure. Now, maybe I misunderstood, but in the little research that I had conducted last week, the impression I got was that this project was because of the third runway that's going to be built. Is that correct? Is this specifically for the third runway, or is this just happen to be a good, because of that runway, a good point to start this work?
Yeah, it's a good point. The facility itself is not specifically just for third runway. What it's actually focused on at the moment is a condition that we have when the visual control room, the tower at 87 metres above us, goes into low cloud. The controllers can't see part of the airfield, and they adopt a tower and cloud procedure, as we call it. A VIS2 procedure is another description that's used for it. So it means they can't see part of the airfield surface, and they then use ground movement radar, ASMGCS data to control the aircraft. What we're looking at doing is proving that the camera surveillance and AI can provide a more efficient solution for them to give them a more accurate and a much faster update so that they can give landing clearances just as safely but without having to increase the final approach spacing, reduce the landing rate when we have tower and cloud. That's just the first application. We can build all sorts of additional capabilities through different applications. And what we can certainly also do is look at how we would control, new airport parts of the airport as they're developed or changed, and whether actually providing different information, different video surveillance, different support levels could actually help the controllers in adapting to those changes. So runway 3 would just be one of those potential changes for the future.
Sure. Okay. So we're looking at the north here. Are you able to show us a view of the south?
Yeah, so at the moment it's just simply a case of switching around. We have one runway per video wall, or per video wall display, and that is because with an airport like Heathrow, where the control tower sits in the middle of the runway, or the pair of runways rather, trying to display both runways at the same time on a single video wall creates quite an odd distortion if you kind of open that up, as perhaps smaller airport digital tower solutions can do. But the best way of displaying a multi-runway parallel operation, particularly with terminals and tower in the middle of them, is to display them per runway on a video wall rather than both together. So again, this is being a laboratory, showing just one at a time, but it may be that we have, if we continue with video walls in part of our solution, then we may well have a number of video walls. Likewise, what we can work on with the controllers is testing the suitability of working away from video walls and having more of a personal video wall.
Right.
If you're doing that within a conventional tower, like we're proposing to take some of those capabilities quickly upstairs into our physical tower, then having this kind of layer of video where you can look over and still see out of the window rather than having a big video wall is potentially a big advantage. And that's why Seeridge is a particularly relevant supplier, and that's why we're invested in Seeridge, because of that flexibility around how you can use the system. If we were looking at somewhere for, say, the contingency operation, and we have an off-site contingency, that at the moment has now out of the window view, and we use the tower and cloud procedures and go head down with radar. Potentially with video, then I can enhance that. At the moment, that capacity, that contingency has a capacity around about 70% of the normal throughput of the airport. We would want that contingency to be able to go to the full capability of the normal operation. And giving video and AI support to that is definitely a way forward with it.
Okay, so that's the video wall. Perhaps we can have a look at these workstations down here. Is this just a duplicate of what they've got already upstairs in the tower?
No, these displays have basically been put in here from the point of view of being able to work with the controllers so that they can determine what information they want in what position. All three layers, the video wall, the personal video wall, and the desk-mounted screens, all run on the same series software. And we can display anything from the map data that you can see to your left-hand side, which is a ground surveillance picture, but that actually can take in video information too, but still display it as a map output. We can have video inputs that you can see here, and these are the pan-tilt zoom cameras, so they're kind of like electronic binoculars, which can track aircraft around the airport, zoom into certain places. You can control them by pointing to somewhere on the map or pointing to a target, and the pan-tilt zoom camera will move to that. And then the section here can show video or map data. So what we're doing in Singapore at the moment, in a deployment of a digital tower for them, has this kind of layer in it, and it's a mix between the PTZ controls, the PTZ views, specific views for the different workstations, and map data. So they're tending to put everything onto this area here. But it's very flexible, and that's why I've got all three layers, so that the controllers at Heathrow can determine what they would like, given the systems and the data that we're trying to integrate here.
Okay.
That is some serious tech. Honestly, Matt, I think you must have, you'd love to go there and have a
I was very jealous, certainly. Absolutely. A play? No, thank you. I'd quite like to go and observe. I don't think it's the sort of system one would play with.
Nev, you were obviously there on site, so you got to be in the room. Is it a mishmash of cables, or is it all very nicely?
Oh no, it's very tidy indeed, and I'm sure they're not using the £25 Netgear router to do all of that. There's lots of fibre and lots of very high specification stuff going on there. But no, a fascinating insight into it, and I was very impressed with the quality. Actually, those ultra high definition displays are very good, and the real time element of it is really important too. And well, next week we've got a part 2 of this to show as well, so that there is some more to come.
What, there's more? Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
There it is.
Yeah.
So moving on,
and actually next week we're going to talk about the artificial intelligence part of it as well. So how the cameras can recognise what aircraft are coming off the runway, off the taxiways and that kind of thing. So yeah, really interesting.
That will be interesting to see how it deals with aircraft that aren't in their normal livery. So I don't mean like the BA retro ones, which are just, oddities, if you like, in the nicest possible way. But say, for example, Lufthansa operating a British Airways flight. So will the system go, that's a Lufthansa aircraft because it's got Lufthansa on it, because it matches the algorithm for Lufthansa, even though it's using the Speedbird call sign. How do you reckon it will cope with that, Nev?
Well, from what I understand, from what they were saying yesterday, is that the system can learn these things as well. So obviously, if it's a Lufthansa logoed aircraft, but it might be operating a BA flight number, or vice versa, possibly. So the ADS-B tags say obviously what the flight number is, but also they can put all kinds of different information on there. So it can say, Lufthansa operating as Speedbird, whatever it is. So yeah, there's lots of flexibility there, but obviously the ADS-B is hard coded at the manufacturer's end.
So as long as the data it receives is fine, it will be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is why this whole thing's in development, because they are learning about how to do some of these things as well. So yeah,
it's a fascinating project.
It must be quite irritating when people like me come along in the end and go, have you thought about? And I went, No, we hadn't.
Yeah, well, this is it. But then, as I say, presumably that's why it's sort of in development. As you say, it is essentially a lab.
Well, of
it's
course,
not a working tower.
it's not very long before the first real digital tower is going to be operating in the UK, which will be at London City Airport.
Oh, really?
The main tower is going, and it'll all be done this way. So that's due for completion, I think, by the end of this year or start of next year.
Okay. Before we move on to you've almost got your way, Al, in the fact that we've had to massively reduce our military section in order to sort of fit in with our time window. Before we move on, very quickly.
I'm going to get death threats from Jonathan Warner
absolutely.
again.
Yeah, Warner's going to write to you personally. Yeah. Absolutely, he's going to thoroughly enjoy that. Before we move on very quickly, I'm just going to say one of my friends has just sent me a picture. Actually, he's been working over the last month or so to build this. Is a nice little KLM model that he's all painted up and things. So well done, Julian.
That's really nice.
He's just completed it this evening. But I haven't got any more text to go with it, otherwise I could tell you more about it. But other than the fact that
you can tell that that's not City of Swansea,
right? Because
if that was City of Swansea, that glue would have gone by now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Good. Anyway. So yes. Anyway. Well done, Julian. Right. We better move on to.
So what's next, Armando?
Yeah. So in this interest of time, we are going to do one story for the military segment,
but it's quite a big story.
Just before we go on to the military, I'm only joking.
Oh no! Anyway, quick! I'm going to run the jingle. Everybody, here we go.
Yeah, so that's right. The one story that I think we're all tracking this week and is sort of near and dear to all of us comes from flightglobal.com, and it is that Farnborough Air Show is axing its public weekend from 2020. So the organizers of UK's Farnborough Air Show are axing the public weekend display, reducing the event from 7-day to a 5-day program concentrating on the trade aspect. The show, which is only held every 2 years, alternating with the Paris Air Show, has normally capped off its 5-day trade and industry focus with 2 days of flying displays, which were open to the public. But organizer Farnborough International says it will be removing the weekend public days from the 2020 show in favor of allowing public access to the final trade day. The public days have attracted recent criticism from enthusiasts, not least because many of the new aircraft displayed and demonstrated during the trade days depart from the show before the weekend event. On some occasions, the flying display has been left a little sparse, with aircraft having to be sent up twice to help fill out the event. The industry has also been dealing with the fallout from the fatal accident at the Shoreham Air Show in 2015. Farnborough International says it wants to redirect its strategy and focus on highlighting new technology and manufacturing by allowing public access to its exhibition halls. Chief Executive Gareth Rogers says the axing of the weekend show will disappoint. He believes the change will help exhibitors and trade visitors to access valuable talent. Allowing the public to see more of the people, products, and processes that underpin the global aerospace, defense, and space industries will help engage and inspire a new generation, he adds. The organizer believes that the show can attract young people and encourage them to consider careers in these sectors. Farnborough International adds that there will be a flight display on each of the 5 days of the 2020 show.
So, well, let's go around the room, shall we? I mean,
the biggest problem with this, and it was highlighted on the news this week a number of times, is that they're going to open this up to the public on the Friday.
Right.
It
sounds like Friday is the day we don't want to go then, by the sound of it.
So the biggest issue that a lot of the people who like the public who go to the public days, who take their kids and children to here, and a lot of the things that have really upset them is the fact that if they want to take their kids to the Friday, what have they got to do? Take their kids out of school?
No, I think aren't they finished usually then?
No, the kids are still at
they
school.
not?
It was
Okay,
one of the
right,
things that was
yeah,
brought up, which is slightly annoying. But there's so many different reasons flying around in the kind of aviation circuit as to why they've done this. I mean, they've pointed out some reasons why, but I just think this. I mean, last year's show we all know was that the flying display was kind of hampered by a lot of delays between acts, as we all know because we were there. It wasn't as good as previous years.
I think the word probably to use last year's show was disappointing on the public days. And what I know you have not turned to me, but I'll just gob off anyway.
Carry on, Al.
That's why you're here, Al.
I'm actually, in some ways, pleased that they've done this, because I felt that the show organisers were exploiting the general public because they were charging people for the brochures that were given away to the trade visitors during the week. And quite clearly, they were just going to go in the trash, these things. So, and the show was disappointing. Half of the good stuff had gone. Whilst it's a great shame because the public aren't going to see some of the commercial aircraft, at least they're not being ripped off to see them, and I feel that it's the correct decision. Keep the trade show. What I would love to see, I doubt that it's possible for a variety of reasons, is for RIAT to extend and say, okay, we're going to open it up to military and commercial. So let's have the 380 come to Fairford, and let's put on the world's best air show.
Yeah.
Oh, you sort of combined forces, perhaps, as a
So, I mean, I think it's fair to say that RIAT is a fantastic military air show.
It is,
and it's difficult because of the physical makeup of RIAT, but I would love them to do that, to take over the mantle of the civilian show. Maybe just do it alternate years as they were doing at Farnborough anyway. But for me, whilst it's sad for some people and it's a tad disappointing, I hate seeing the public be exploited. So
fair point.
That's my view.
Yeah. Nev, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. It was terribly expensive, wasn't it? All the food and drink and all the rest of it. But by the time Friday came around, many aircraft had gone home.
Yeah, that's true.
Gone back to the US or back into Europe, wherever they're going to. If you go, do it properly, basically, or don't do it. And I think if we go to Farnborough next time round, we'll be going at the start of the week. I would imagine.
I think so. Yeah,
a couple of trade
I
days
think the food and drink is very, very relevant actually, because during the trade days, during the week, the vast majority that people are there are on expenses. So they don't give a flying banana whether a burger is £9 because they're not paying for it. On the public day, if you're taking your family, your 2 kids, your 2.3 kids, £9 for a burger, having paid
money,
God knows how much to get in, and God knows how much to park your car. It's too much, and
And let's not get started on the ice cream prices, of course, Al, because that is obviously a major concern.
What do you mean? Al didn't pay for his. Or his Prosecco.
Anyway. There is that. Armando, I mean, what are your thoughts? Have you ever made Farnborough?
Yeah, so this year, we were there.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Right?
Are you all right, Matt?
So, it is a little hot in this room. So, but that's actually a good point because that was my first.
To win friends and influence.
Oh no, he leaves us next week. I don't care anymore.
A guy with whom we once worked.
He's dead to me now. That's fine. He's going now. Going home to his lovely wife. Honestly,
no, that was my first Farnborough ever, and I kind of walked away with sort of that same experience where I was just like, oh, this is it, huh? Yeah. So really, if it hadn't been for the meetup and the APG guys coming over and Pip and Al and everybody, all the listeners and everybody that we see in the chat room getting together, really, it would have been a terrible drive and a terrible experience. I guess we'll just have to do a meetup somewhere else.
Yeah, indeed.
So we've got a little bit of feedback to play you guys now that was sent in by Neil Lamworn, and on a recent trip he had to Lanzarote, where I used to say the plane spotting is awesome. But Matt, if you're ready, we're going to play that for you right now.
And good morning, PT UK from Terminal 2 at Lanzarote. Here we are, just having checked in for our CRJ 1000 flight to Gran Canaria. Nice, lovely little terminal, nice little cafe. Couple of check-in desks, and just 1 or 2 security gates. This is the inter-island terminal, so you only get the small airlines flying from here. Interestingly, the locals get about 80-90% discount on tickets, so very, very cheap, using light buses. We've got about an hour before we have to board, so we'll be off to get a little bit of breakfast and do some spotting, and we'll get back to you when we're boarding. Very, very sunny, beautiful weather, much better than the -7 that we left behind. Nice ATR over there. Here we go to Bombardier, as we say, Micronesia. Here we go. Off to our right here you can see an Air Europa ATR. Interesting thing about these is they can actually push themselves back. 2x2 configuration. Very nice, plenty of room. Nice, light, airy, nice and bright. Decent leg room even for a 6-footer like me, even in normal seat. No seat assignment on these, so first come first serve. So if you want the exit row, it is all yours for the princely sum of nothing. And a little snack. Last time on the ATR we got little donuts and something else. So we'll see whether we get that on the way back or not. But it's nice. It's a very, very nice touch for what really is only a 40-45 minute flight. Nice. After the drink service, come round with little wine for you and little sweets. Really, really nice. When you get off your flight, don't go straight to the exit, go to the connections up the stairs, and you've got here lovely views across the airfield. Ryanair just going up there. Really, really very, very nice windows. Really clear, really clean. Excellent for spotting. You've got mostly local arrivals here. Internationals, a lot of those are further up. You can see over to the military aerodrome over there. Here we go. Obviously, very productive day, lots to see, lots done. Very nice flight back, not as luxurious as the CRJ, but it's an older plane, so what can you do? With that, back to you in the studio.
Thanks for that, Neil. Very nice always to have video in. And for those of us in Europe and the UK who do fancy a bit of plane spotting, I can say that is a really good place to go to see aircraft up close and personal. Matt?
Indeed. Yeah, just for your information, there is a longer version of the video, which if you go to the show notes will be available for you to watch. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit distracted because it appears something's gone wrong with my camera. I don't know what I'm doing there. But I think something's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah. Family show, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go back to Carlos. I think there.
That's usually what he looks like when Al is talking. It's just
absolutely, he's mostly terrified throughout.
I'm thinking of that Clarence Carter song, and Carlos being a DJ, you'll be familiar with it. It's got the title of Stroking, isn't it?
Right, yes. Anyway, we really are desperately running out of time, so if there's anything else that you need to... yes, what I was trying to say was that, the full version of Neil's video will be available for you to click in the show notes. There'll be a link to it. You can watch the full version there, but that one will obviously edited.
Yes, folks, Matt is demonstrating he can actually multitask there. He can talk and stroke.
Stop it. Moving on. Okay, quick.
Moving swiftly on. Right, so we are going to wrap up episode number 259 of the show, as we have got to nip out now after the show and take Armando to have his last meal at Chan's before he goes back home.
It's very sad, isn't it?
But before we
hang on, have I missed something? When you say his last meal, he's not been put on death row or anything. We're just losing him from the UK. That is the correct.
Yes, we're losing him from the UK.
Yeah, but I've already said earlier in the show he will essentially be dead to me once he leaves. So
but Armando just wants to say a few things before he goes. For everyone who's listening, over to you, Armando.
Yeah, you should have heard the music that Carlos wanted to play. I'm just going to be like, oh man, this is not a eulogy. No, I really just wanted to thank everybody. I've wrapped up 2 years here in the UK, and before that I lived here for 4 years in the same area in East Anglia. So this is hopefully my last move. And it's just been a great time. I love living over here. It's been great hanging out with you guys and getting to do a lot of this. The flying stuff that we did, and even Matt got in the air, which was awesome.
Yeah, terrifying but awesome. Yeah,
yeah, and meeting everybody in the PTUK community. So I truly will miss living here in the UK. I'm incredibly excited about going home to my wife and just starting sort of our. Oh my goodness. Hopefully I'll continue to give you guys some good content from the US as your sort of field reporter, but genuinely just a thank you to everybody here in the UK and the aviation community that's really just taken me in. So
thanks for everything you've done, Armando. It's been so good having you on the show, and you could continue to be a big part of the show, and we're very grateful to have you with us.
Yeah, and I suppose sort of the last thing, this is also wrapping up 21 and a half years of a military career. So I'm 7 days from flying home, and honestly, to all those people that are out there, from all our friendly nations and coalition nations and U.S. forces and U.K. forces that hopefully listen to the show. Sometimes just a little bit of levity is all you need when you're out there in the field or away from family. So it's just happy thoughts and good vibes to all of our service members out there and first responders. Truly, number one in all of our hearts. So,
I think a big round of applause to Armando from everyone here in the studio and the PTUK listeners.
Absolutely, Armando. And can I just extend out and say that I want to thank you for your servicing, because obviously, having spent that period of time in East Anglia, you've helped to enhance the gene pool in the area, being an outsider, and that's been of a huge benefit to us in the UK. And I was on the verge of making you an honorary Brit up until the point earlier on in the show where you attempted to say the word pasta. And I'm afraid, after all that time in the UK, you've still not got it right.
So pasta and scones isn't a thing?
Yeah,
Pasta.
that's right,
Pasta.
Dear. But yeah, on behalf of the ladies of East Anglia, thank you.
Right. Yeah. And of course, I am absolutely... Dude, we're going to miss you so much. It's
Yeah.
been great
Yeah.
to have you in our neck of the woods. And of course, this won't be the end, of course. 'Cause
Yeah, we'll see
still
everybody.
it'll be no different. It's just that, you'll be
You'll be
just,
there, yeah.
You'll be just sat underneath Captain Al, which won't be an experience you'll enjoy. But...
I don't know.
Especially if I've had curry.
Yeah.
Right, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
On that note,
yeah. Indeed.
So, well, yeah, I was going to say, without being too specific, because, obviously we don't want just people calling around unsolicited. Where in the United States are you planning on settling?
I have absolutely no problem. So I'll be in Charlotte, in the just north of Charlotte. Megan and I bought a house on Lake Norman. So it's a pretty big lake. So if you can find us, then good luck to you.
Right.
But
It's okay. We just need the details so that we can, come and trash your neighbourhood.
well,
And,
so you have a 50-50 shot at the lakes in Charlotte because Dr. Steph lives on the other lake.
Right. Okay.
So you're either going to trash our neighborhood or her neighborhood.
Yeah,
so.
okay. Either way, it's not going to end well. Yeah, anyway. So, obviously, you fly home a week today, in fact, don't you? So
Yeah, that's it. About 6 days and 18 hours.
Indeed. Nev, what are you up to next week?
Picking his nose by the looks of
it. Well,
Stop it.
yes, I was thinking about doing that. But yes, I might even be up in your neck of the woods as I
dear.
head up to the danger zone that is this.
Oh, dear.
So yeah, I might well pop in and be a nuisance.
Right, excellent. Oh, so we might get a quick visit then while you're down
Yeah.
this way. Carlos, what have you got on your plans for next week?
I am off all next week. I have a week off. Me and Jem are off for a week, and we're going to go and together.
It's going to be the end of a beautiful marriage, everyone.
I know, and we've got lots of DIY planned. And on Friday, I shall be going and seeing Armando, and
Yeah.
we're going to have some fun, aren't we? On Friday.
Indeed. Yeah.
Amanda, can I ask you a question? It's a reasonably serious one. When you've ended your military career and you're flying back to the United States, do you go back on a military transport, or is it a commercial airline?
No, yeah, I'll be on American Airlines. It is a direct flight from Heathrow to Charlotte.
Okay, fantastic. So if there is anybody from American Airlines listening, I know it's a bit of a long shot, to be honest, but if anyone is listening from American Airlines, could you please ensure that Armando is put in first class? He's done a lot to help preserve the safety of many persons throughout the entire world. So he deserves some of that 25-year-old brandy.
Amen to that.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So that's it. That's where we're going to bring episode number 259 of the show to a close. Thanks to everyone who's joined us in the chat room tonight. We hope you have a fantastic weekend, whatever you do. And don't forget
just before you go, I've just had a message. Jan's just taken a last-minute booking for a table.
Right,
Is that a problem?
Better not have done.
So keep the eyes on social media. Follow us on there. The T-shirts are on sale. Treat yourself
You're
to
not
a
running late or
T-shirt.
anything,
No,
are you?
And-
absolutely. 9 o'clock we were supposed to be there, but anyway.
And on behalf of me, Carlos, saying good night. Take care. Have a great weekend. And from you, Nev.
Good night, folks. Have a nice week. See you next week.
Yeah, and I say goodbye. Armando, I think we should leave you to say the last word.
Oh, you know, it's been awesome. I love hanging out with you guys. Have a great week, and we'll see you on the next show.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.